Hi guys, today I'm at Zhongyang University in Taiwan because there is an event which allows me to rent vintage lenses for free for the afternoon. So I'm very excited about it. Now let's go. The first lens I'm going to try is Canon 50mm f1.8. It's recommended by the shop owner. It's a full frame lens, so attached on my APS-C camera, it's the equivalent of about 75mm. It's a manual lens and it's very compact. It feels very similar to my TT Artisan 50mm f1.2, and I think the performance is also very similar. I like the sort of washed out vintage tone. This kind of vintage tone is even more obvious when I take photos facing the sun. I think this kind of focal length isn't too difficult to handle, especially since this is not the first time I use a manual lens. If you pay attention to the edges, you might notice the chromatic aberration, but I guess it's common for all vintage lenses. I really wish I could have more time to try out these lenses. Now I only have a couple of hours, but I still want to share with you my first impressions of them. All the photos I show here are unedited because I thought since I love the vintage tone so much, it just doesn't make sense to adjust the colors again. But for some particular images, I did a little color correction because it's too dark. Overall, I think this Canon 50mm f1.8 lens is pretty suitable for manual lens beginners. It's a little bit challenging, but not too challenging to focus correctly. And when you do, the image looks pretty sharp. like the size and the shape of the bokeh balls. If I hadn't got the TD Artisan 50mm f1.2, I might consider buying this lens. The second lens I'm trying is Olympus 75mm to 150mm f4. It's also a full-frame lens, so the focal length is pretty long on an APS-C camera. The lens body is also very long, but it's not particularly heavy, about the same weight as my Sony 18 to 105mm lens. This is the first time I use a manual zoom lens, and I have to say it's a lot more difficult than I expected. If it's a prime lens, I already have to worry about aperture, shutter speed, ISO, and manual focus. But now it's a zoom lens, so I have one more thing to worry about, the focal length. So it suddenly becomes very complicated. Every time I decided the focal length and started adjusting the manual focus, the people in the frame moved and I had to adjust everything again. So it's actually quite frustrating for a beginner like me. And also because of the long focal length, all the shaking becomes very obvious. The shop owner particularly reminded me not to use a shutter speed slower than 1/100 seconds. I tried this lens for about 90 minutes. It's not a long time, but my first impression is that I'm not a big fan of it. I admit it's fun to use, but it's also very frustrating. Like, only 1/4 of my photos are usable. So I think maybe this lens is too advanced or too complicated for me at this point. So this afternoon I only have time to try out these two lenses. This is only part 1 of the entire video. For part 2, I'm going to show you another 2 great vintage lenses I tried on my Sony ZVE10. One is a Minolta lens and the other is a Fuji lens. So if you're interested, make sure you subscribe so that you won't miss my future videos. I'll see you next time.